If your 9-year-old is hitting, kicking, melting down, arguing with you about everything, refusing to do things, blowing up your home, and I don't care if they're 9 or 7 or younger than that or much, much older, you might be wondering what you're doing wrong. Stop right there. Because this is not a reflection of your intelligence. It's really not even a reflection of the actual parenting skills that you have. It's not a reflection of your ability to be able to cope. And it's not proof that you can't manage your family. Most parents that I work with are actually doing a lot of things right. And what's happening in their home, it's not failure. It really isn't failure of you. Like I've told my parent, I'm just a bad parent, or I can't do this right. It's actually a systems problem. And it's more than just the surface of the behaviors that are. I want to say that again. Most parents I work with are actually doing a lot right. What's happening isn't failure, it's a systems problem. What I want to do is help you to lower the panic and the shame. Because these behaviors that are happening, whether it's happening with your younger kids, your older kids, all of the kids, whatever letters they have behind their names or in front of their names, these behaviors really feel urgent and scary because most of the time they're happening quite often, and they are scary. Parents are being told to just hide in a different room with their kids and let this child destroy the house. They're told to get other kids out of the house. Parents are trying to figure out if they need to call the police, if it's okay if they, try to work with this child to get calmed down. And some parents are even being told that this is just how it is, and they just need to connect more, or they need to let this child hurt them as long as they don't hurt anybody else in the family. And that advice, especially the alone, just that is just advice, and it's not complete, and it's not going to work. I tend to stay really calm when I work with families like yours because there's already enough panic that's happening inside your home and happening inside your head. It's very overwhelming when it feels like everything is out of control in your family, even though it may be even just one child that's completely out of control, but it produces a whole system of things that are happening. So these behaviors, it is important that you not only get advice, but that you get some real help in dealing with it. And the real problem actually is, I call it foundational glitches. So it's like you're trying to clean a room and the ceiling is collapsing. Or maybe you put some flowers out and there's been an earthquake, so everything is in disarray, and we're just going to put some flowers out, and that's what it can feel like. And I want to shift that for you, because parents you're being told a lot of times to correct the behavior on the surface, or that's even sometimes what we want, right? Like, I just want them to stop doing that. And maybe even for yourself, it's like, I want to stop yelling, or I want to stop having to protect my other kids from this child, right? And so there's this, and as we're approaching it with the child that we're struggling with, we're approaching it on the surface. Like we're kind of right in their executive functioning skills that they don't have, and their ability to translate what we're talking about. And a lot of times it's not sometimes we're trying to do things in the moment where we're trying to do that, but then other times afterwards we're trying to process this with them, and we think that they get it, because now they're calm and they're able to be more agreeable. But then the next day or 2 days later, the same thing happens again. Like they aren't learning the way that we want them to learn it, and we're not approaching it in a way that they can. Their executive functioning skills are causing a lot of the behaviors, and what's happening in their brain is coming out in behaviors, and there's ways that we can help with that. And most of them are not like something super hard, but you need to have the help and support to do it, so that it's not just like putting flowers on a table when the whole house has been wrecked by an earthquake. These are translation errors between a parent and child, really between adults and these kids, especially if your child has ADHD, if there's trauma, if you've heard that they're demand avoidance, they have emotional distress, they have mood disorders, all of those things, all those different letters, the ADHD and MDD and ODD, all that stuff, it's all comes out in their behaviors. And what we want to do is really reach them kind of at the core of where those things are happening, which is actually in their brain. We think sometimes it's all in their emotions. No, they're really good at acting out their emotions, but they're not connecting that there. So you are working really, really hard, but you're working without the right tools. And that's why these common strategies are not working for you. We're trying to connect, but there's not safety. And if safety isn't stable, there's no connection. Or you're trying to use skills that maybe you worked with your other kids, or that other parents have told you will work, or your therapist or the kid's therapist, or maybe you're just trying to avoid using the parenting that your parents did, and so it's not working, because what we really have to do is teach ourselves to regulate, so that we can teach our kids how to regulate. And that's more than just advice, like, oh, you need to be more patient, or you should be more calm. Like, no, like that's just advice. Like, you need to know how to do that. So consequences too, like if we're not building trust, if we're not building safety, then consequences don't really matter. The consequences that you're being told to use are going to escalate those power struggles. If the consequence is to just take the phone away, you're going to escalate the power struggle instead of dealing with the stuff that's really going on. And that's not your fault. That's just not knowing how to do that, or being taught how to do that. And not just being taught, but you need support to do it, because this is a whole different game here. Connection that's built on chaos doesn't create security. It actually creates more confusion. And that's really important to remember. So the connection piece is like putting the flowers on the table when there's an earthquake. Yes, I want to teach you how to connect with your child. But if you're going for connection when there's not safety, then basically it's a false connection. I've said this in other videos, but I've had people at school, different people tell me like, oh no, this child we have a good connection. But this child can turn around and spit in their face, or kick, or hit, or scream. There's a disconnect there. And yes, it's in those moments, but there's a disconnect that's happening in their brain and other places, because it's not, and I've also heard people say that, oh, well, they just feel safe with me, so that's why they act that way with me. And it's like, no. That's not what we want. Like, if we feel safe with people and there's trust built, we actually can do what they tell us to do, and we can rely on them. And these kids are not doing that. That's not what's happening here. So what I want you to remember is that it's okay to go for being functional. You don't have to try to make it all look perfect. Or have these expectations that your child is going to be doing all these other things, and so we can't let that go. Like I do this a lot with parents about homework. It's like, right now, that's not the most important thing. Teaching this child how to be human and functional and not hurt people and not scare everybody in the family That's more important right now than whether they're getting all their homework done. And that functional, and once we get that safety established, kids do fine in catching up and learning. Honestly, they really will. And I'm not just talking about kids that are super smart or whatever. It's like there's a level of function that we have to have in order to learn, and a level of safety. And if we don't have that, we're really just kind of masking over this other stuff, trying to get something that isn't as important. What you need is clear, calm, functional leadership. I want to give you something that maybe you need to write on your mirror in your bathroom, or a sticky note on the refrigerator. Maybe you don't want to share it with your kids, but somewhere that you can see it, that you are allowed to choose functional over perfect. And I can teach you how to do that. So this is a reset. It's like starting over is actually leadership. It's a leadership decision. This is a turning point. It's okay to say, we're going to start over. We're going to do this differently. And it allows us to let go of the past. And even the past hurts, and the way it's always been, and how this child has always acted, or how they've always treated us, or if it's an adopted child, like how they learn this from their biological parents or whatever, right? Like, we need to reset, and starting over is leadership. Resetting is not cheating. It's not avoidance. It's not giving in. It's a leadership decision. When I decide that I'm not going to deal with this argument right now, but we're going to work on this executive functioning skill instead, I'm not avoiding this over here. I'm not avoiding a consequence that isn't going to work anyway. I am working on something that's going to be lasting and work over the long term. Starting over is like freezing the past. It's where we stop reigniting old mistakes, and we start clean with new tools and new expectations. And I would say it sounds probably scary to a lot of parents when they first start to work with me. But what you're doing right now, more exhausting and more frightening, because it isn't working. And I think that it becomes kind of the norm of that tiptoeing around, and so we get scared, right, because of the past. But we're going to freeze the past, and we're going to start clean with new expectations. And this is going to give you some big changes. First of all, there's a lot of hope. You're going to have less escalations. You're going to have more clarity, fewer arguments, and a child that really starts to trust that adults will keep them and everyone else safe. And they really need that. There's no dignity or safety in allowing a child to hurt themselves or hurt other people. They can't have a good sense of themselves when that's going on. So when safety comes first, behavior starts to make sense. And that's a key truth. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this is us, I want you to know that you do not have to figure this out alone. I've created a free guide that walks you through some of these 3 things that your kids need from you, what to stop doing, what to start doing. It's not complete. It's not a workbook. It's just a guide, but it gives you a taste of some things that you can actually start doing right now at home. And you'll find that link for that guide in the description and in the comments. And I recommend that you read it slowly and use it as a reset point. But you may find that this is a great idea, that your thoughts are that this is a great idea, but I have tried this, or we used to do that. And that's where you need support to go with it. But get the guide, and then we can talk, and remind yourself that you didn't mess this up. You just need a different approach. And that this is not starting over because you failed. It's starting over because you're leading.